Chosen one, you just inspired someone to confront nasty rumors about you, ending a karmic lie they helped protect. Your quiet authority cracked a conscience wide open. A confession is forming that clears your name from stories you never heard, but were poisoning rooms you already left. The confrontation is inevitable. You don't need to defend yourself. Truth is arriving your behalf, elevating permanently. The person spreading rumors about you is drowning, not metaphorically, actually drowning in debt so deep the surface isn't visible anymore. We're talking about someone who's been living a lifestyle that looks good on the outside but is completely hollow on the inside. Parties beyond financial means, substances consumed without thought of consequence, spending that can't be sustained. They've been running on borrowed time and borrowed money for so long that bills finally came due. And when they did, this person didn't face consequences like an adult. Theft happened instead, not from strangers, from a community organization. Maybe it was a neighborhood association. Maybe it was a group fund. Maybe it was money from an estate after someone passed. But they had access. Opportunity presented itself, and what wasn't theirs got taken. And here's the beautiful irony. The very thing you're being accused of, that's exactly what the accuser did. The story isn't made up randomly. It's a confession with your name swapped for the real criminal's name. That's how projection works. That's how guilty people operate. They tell the truth about themselves while calling it lies about you. But debt isn't just financial for this person. Karmic debt exists too. See, theft wasn't just about money. Your creative work got stolen. Your style, your energy, your very essence. This is someone who's been watching you, copying you, trying to replicate what you do naturally. A fraud in every sense. No original thoughts, no authentic expression, just a hollow copycat, desperately trying to wear your skin because they have none of their own. And when people didn't fall for the imitation, when the community could tell the difference between real and fake, that envy turned into rage. That's when the rumors started. There's someone who knows everything. Someone who was right there when the theft happened. Someone who watched the lies get built. Someone who maybe even helped spread the first few rumors before their conscience started eating them alive. This person was entangled with your accuser. Maybe romantically, maybe just codependently pulled into chaos that looked fun until it became a cage, and they just broke free. This witness isn't a hero. Let's be clear about that. They were complicit. They enabled bad behavior. They stayed silent when they should have spoken. They carried water for someone who was poisoning the well. But something shifted. Maybe new information about the person they were defending came to light. Maybe they finally saw through the manipulation. Maybe the exhaustion from being used as a shield for someone else's crimes became too much. Whatever the catalyst, they made a decision. The truth is going to be told, even if it costs them everything, even if it exposes their own failures, even if it means starting over with nothing. Here's what makes this witness credible. They're broke. They're walking away from this situation with empty pockets and no safety net. The relationship they just left drained everything, financially, emotionally, spiritually, and they're choosing to speak anyway. That kind of confession, when there's nothing to gain and everything to lose, carries weight. People believe that. Courts believe that. Communities believe that. Because it's not strategy, it's conscience. It's someone who can't carry lies anymore, because the weight became heavier than the consequences of truth. Every accusation made against you was a confession about the accuser. Let me break down the psychological warfare that's been happening. When someone is consumed by guilt, when getting caught feels imminent, when they're terrified of consequences, they often accuse others of the exact crime they committed. It's a defense mechanism, it's misdirection, it's unconscious confession wrapped in conscious attack. They called you a thief because they're the thief. They told you that you took advantage of someone's death because that's what they did. They spread rumors about fraud because they committed fraud. They painted you as someone without integrity because they have none. Every single word out of their mouth about you was actually truth about themselves. And on some level, even if they won't admit it consciously, they know that the guilt is eating them alive. That's why they had to spread lies so aggressively. They were trying to convince themselves as much as others. But this isn't just about money they stole. This is about creative theft, identity theft on an energetic level. This person has been copying your work, your style, your very essence. They don't have an original bone in their body. They're a shell that can only exist by stealing from others. And you were the brightest target. Your authentic expression made them sick with envy because they could never replicate it. People could always tell the difference between your original work and their pathetic imitation. So when copying didn't give them your success, when people still recognized real from fake, they escalated. They decided if they couldn't be you, they would destroy you instead. If they couldn't have your recognition, you shouldn't have it either. That's when the accusations started getting serious. That's when they started telling people you were the one stealing, the one copying, the one taking what wasn't yours. Complete reversal, total projection, textbook gaslighting on a community scale. While all this chaos was unfolding behind your back, you were completely covered. You didn't know it, you couldn't see it, but every attack sent your way was being deflected before it could land. Every curse spoken was returned to sender. Every malicious intention was dissolved before reaching you. You've been operating under a level of spiritual protection so complete that nothing they threw at you could actually stick. Think about the instinct that told you to leave. That wasn't random anxiety. That was divine guidance moving you out of the line of fire before the shots were even loaded. Think about the boundary that told you to block their access. That wasn't you being petty. That was protection, telling you to close the door they needed open to harm you. Think about the silence you chose when every human instinct said to defend yourself. That wasn't weakness, that was spiritual warfare, the most powerful kind, because here's what happens when you don't engage with lies. They have to stand alone, and lies can't stand alone. They need your emotional reaction to seem credible. They need your panic to feel valid. They need your defense to create the appearance of guilt. When you remove all that energy, when you just stay calm and centered and unmoved, the lies start looking exactly like what they are, empty accusations with no substance. And that's when people with discernment start asking questions. Your absence from that community wasn't abandonment. It was strategy, divine strategy. You were being positioned outside their reach so that when they tried to drag you into their mess, they literally couldn't touch you. You weren't there to interrogate. You weren't available to manipulate. You weren't accessible to gaslight. Your distance became your fortress, and inside that fortress you were building, creating, growing, thriving, while they were rotting in the lies they created. If this touched your heart and mind, hype this video so more chosen ones can receive this message. While the public rumor mill was churning, something else was happening in private spaces. The witness who's about to come forward wasn't keeping quiet this whole time. They were having conversations, careful ones, strategic ones, with people they trusted. They were testing the waters, trying to gauge whether the truth would be received if they spoke it, and those conversations were planting seeds. Your accuser had no idea this was happening. They thought the witness was still on their side, still loyal, still complicit in the cover-up. They had no clue that behind closed doors, in careful whispers, in coded language, the truth was already starting to leak out, not as a flood, as a slow drip, one conversation at a time, one seed of doubt at a time, one person at a time beginning to question whether they'd been manipulated. This is how truth actually works in communities. It doesn't usually explode all at once. It builds, it accumulates, it reaches critical mass gradually, and then suddenly, When enough people have privately questioned, when enough doubts have privately grown, when enough conversations have privately happened, there's a tipping point. One person speaks publicly, and suddenly everyone who was privately questioning finds their voice. The dam breaks not because one crack appeared, but because 1,000 invisible cracks had been forming all along. The witness understood this instinctively. They knew they couldn't just come out with the truth immediately. The environment wasn't ready. People were too invested in the lie. Your accuser had too much social capital, so they worked patiently, strategically. They prepared the ground. They planted the seeds. They created the conditions where truth could actually be heard. And now that groundwork is about to pay off in ways that will stun everyone who thought they knew what happened. Let's go back to the exact moment you made the decision to walk away, to block, to create distance, because you need to understand the precision of that timing and why it was the single most important decision you made in this entire situation. You felt something. Maybe you couldn't name it exactly. Maybe you just knew that continuing wasn't possible anymore. You couldn't engage. You couldn't explain. You couldn't keep giving energy to people who didn't value it, so you stopped. What you didn't know is that your absence created a problem for the person lying about you. Their whole strategy depended on having access to you, on being able to watch your reactions, on controlling the narrative by keeping you close enough to manipulate, but far enough to undermine. When you removed yourself completely, you broke their system. You took away their ability to gauge what you knew, what you suspected, what you might do next. Your boundary forced them to guess. And people who are lying always guess wrong, because they're operating from fear instead of truth. They assumed your silence meant weakness. They interpreted your absence as running away. They mistook your peace for ignorance. Every single assumption they made about why you left was projection of what they would do in your position, and every assumption was wrong. See, they thought if they were in your position, they would be frantically defending themselves, desperately trying to convince people, aggressively fighting back against accusations. So when you did none of those things, when you just disappeared into your own life and stopped engaging entirely, they didn't know how to interpret it. Was it because you felt guilty? Was it because you knew you were caught? Was it because you were planning some kind of retaliation? The not knowing ate at them, so they escalated. They spread the rumors harder, faster, to more people. They added more details to make the accusations sound more credible. They recruited more voices to validate their version of events. All of this escalation was actually evidence of their desperation. They were overcompensating because your silence made them nervous, your absence made them insecure, your boundary made them realize they'd lost control. Every time they escalated, they created more evidence of their own obsession with you. People started noticing, why are they still talking about someone who's been gone this long? Why do they seem so invested in making sure everyone knows this story? If they're really the victim here, why does it feel like they're attacking someone who isn't even present to defend themselves? Your absence highlighted their aggression. Your silence made their noise seem unhinged. Meanwhile, you were doing something they couldn't fathom. You were healing. You were building. You were creating. You were thriving. You weren't spending energy on defending your name because you knew your work would speak for itself. You weren't worried about what people believed because you knew anyone worth having in your life would know better. You weren't trying to convince anyone of anything because you understood that time reveals all truth eventually. That confidence, that peace, that complete lack of desperate energy, that's what inspired the witness to break, because they watched the contrast. They saw someone drowning in lies and debt and chaos, constantly scrambling, always performing, never at peace. And they saw you, absent but clearly fine, unbothered by the noise, building a life that spoke louder than any rumor. The contrast was so stark that it became obvious who was living in truth and who was living in deception. Your boundary didn't just protect you, it exposed them. Your silence didn't just preserve your peace, it highlighted their chaos. Your absence didn't just remove you from danger. It created a vacuum where their lies had nowhere to hide. Every choice you made that they interpreted as weakness was actually the setup for their complete exposure. There's going to be a specific moment when this all shifts, when the witness finally speaks publicly, when the testimony comes out, when the evidence gets presented, and that moment is going to feel sudden to everyone watching, like it came out of nowhere, like it's a shocking twist no one saw coming. But you'll know better. You'll understand that this moment was building the entire time, that every boundary you set was preparation, that every day of silence was strategy, that every moment of distance was protection setting the stage for this exact revelation. The witness is going to provide details that only someone who was actually there could know, specifics that can be verified, information that matches documentation, things that align with what actually happened rather than the fabricated version your accuser spread. And when those details come out, people are going to have one of those moments of clarity where everything suddenly makes sense. Oh, that's why the story never quite added up, because it wasn't true. Your accuser is going to try to fight it. They'll claim the witness is lying. They'll say there's a conspiracy against them. They'll try to flip the script and make themselves the victim. But it won't work, because the witness has something they don't: receipts, evidence, proof, things that can be independently verified, things that exist outside of personal testimony, documents, timelines, records that show exactly what happened and when, and who was actually involved. Watch what happens to your accuser in this moment. They're going to go through a visible transformation. The confidence will drain. The aggressive certainty will crumble. The loud accusations will become defensive backpedaling. People are going to see in real time what guilty panic looks like. And it's going to be so different from how you responded to being accused. You stayed calm. You stayed distant. You stayed unbothered. That contrast is going to speak volumes to anyone paying attention. Some people in the community are going to try to stay neutral. They'll say things like, well, we don't really know what happened, or it's their word against theirs, or maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. But the witness isn't going to let that fly. They're going to present evidence that makes neutrality impossible. They're going to force people to choose: believe documented facts or continue believing comfortable lies. And most people, when actually forced to choose, will choose truth. Your accuser is going to realize too late that they made their lies too big, too dramatic, too specific, because when lies are vague, they're hard to disprove. But when lies are detailed, when they include specific claims about specific events, they become easy to fact-check. And every specific lie your accuser told is about to be fact-checked against the witness testimony and the evidence, and every single one is going to fail. This person didn't just see things happen. They were part of conversations that reveal motive. They heard the planning. They watched the desperation grow. They have information about why you were specifically chosen as the scapegoat and what the real crime actually was. And that knowledge is about to become public. The witness knows about the lifestyle that created the debt. They were there for the parties that cost more than anyone should spend. They saw the substances being consumed like there was no consequence. They watched money disappear on experiences that looked impressive but left nothing of value behind. They observed someone living like they had unlimited resources when they actually had mounting bills they couldn't pay. More importantly, the witness knows about the moment everything changed. There was a specific point where the person spreading lies realized they were in too deep. Maybe it was a demand for repayment they couldn't meet. Maybe it was an audit that was about to expose them. Maybe it was family or officials asking questions they couldn't answer. Whatever the catalyst, the witness saw the panic. They watched the scrambling. They heard the conversations about needing to redirect attention before everything came crashing down. The witness can testify to conversations where your name was specifically discussed as the solution, where the person spreading lies actually said out loud, "We can make this about them instead," where they strategized how to use your absence as evidence, where they planned which details to emphasize and which to conveniently omit. The witness heard them practice the narrative, rehearse the emotion, perfect the performance of being a concerned victim instead of the actual perpetrator. The witness also knows something else crucial. They know about other people this person has done similar things to in the past. You weren't the first target. You weren't the first person to have your reputation attacked when you tried to create boundaries with them. You weren't the first person to be blamed for their problems. There's a pattern, and the witness can speak to that pattern in ways that show this wasn't an isolated incident or a misunderstanding. This is who this person is. This is what they do when consequences close in. When the community hears about the pattern, everything shifts, because one accusation can be explained away. One conflict can be framed as a misunderstanding between two people. But a pattern, a history of blaming others for self-created problems, a track record of burning bridges and then claiming the bridge attacked them, that's undeniable character evidence. That's proof of exactly who they are when the mask comes off. Now let me put you onto something real. Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind-programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. When the truth breaks, the community is going to go through stages. First, shock, then embarrassment, then anger. Not at you, at the person who manipulated them, because people don't like being used. They don't like being made to look foolish. They don't like being weapons in someone else's vendetta. And when they realize that's exactly what happened, the backlash is going to be severe. Some people believed the rumors completely. They spread them. They added their own speculation. They convinced others. Now their own credibility is on the line. These people are going to be defensive at first. They're going to resist the truth, because accepting it means accepting that they harmed an innocent person. But eventually, the evidence will be too strong, the witness too credible, the truth too obvious, and they'll have to face what they did. Most people stayed on the fence. They heard the rumors, but never quite believed them fully. They had doubts, but didn't voice them. When the truth comes out, they're going to feel relief mixed with regret. Relief that they didn't invest too deeply in the lies. Regret that they didn't speak up for you when it mattered. These are the ones who'll try to reconnect, who'll want to explain they never really believed it, who'll seek forgiveness for their silence. Then there are the people who never believed it at all, the ones who knew you, who understood your character, who heard the accusations and immediately thought, that doesn't sound right. These people stayed quiet, because speaking up felt risky, because going against the group narrative felt isolating. When the truth comes out, they're going to feel vindicated, and they're going to be vocal about it. I tried to tell people I knew something was off. The community as a whole is going to turn on the liar with fury that might surprise you, because manipulation creates a specific kind of anger. Betrayal from someone you defended creates a specific kind of rage. Being used to harm someone innocent creates a specific kind of shame that converts to aggression. This person is about to experience social consequences that match their social crimes. Now here's what you need to understand about this phase. You might feel compassion for them. You might see their downfall and think, That's harsh, or maybe they don't deserve all that. That's because you have empathy, you have humanity, you're not vindictive by nature. But remember this, what's happening isn't mob justice, it's natural consequences. When you lie to a community, the community stops trusting you. When you manipulate people into harming someone innocent, those people resent you. When you build your defense on destroying someone else, that defense collapses and takes you down with it. Every lie this person told was a seed planted, and those seeds don't grow into what the liar wants. They grow into consequences. They grow into exposure. They grow into the exact thing the liar was trying to avoid. That's how karma works. It doesn't just punish, it teaches. And the lesson is always tailored specifically to the crime. This person thought they could redirect attention from their own guilt by creating a bigger, more dramatic story about you. They thought they could avoid accountability by making you accountable instead. They thought they could escape their karmic debt by transferring it to someone else. But karma doesn't work like that. You can't dodge consequences by blaming someone else. You can only delay them, and every day of delay adds interest. Think of it like this. They committed theft. That created karmic debt. Then they lied about it. That doubled the debt. Then they blamed you specifically. That tripled it. Then they spread those lies to a community. That multiplied it exponentially. Then they maintained those lies over time instead of confessing. That's compound interest on a cosmic scale. What started as one act of wrongdoing has snowballed into a mountain of karmic consequence that's about to avalanche directly onto their head. They're going to be exposed for exactly what they accused you of. They called you a thief, so they'll be revealed as the thief. They said you took advantage of someone's death, so everyone will see they did that. They claimed you committed fraud, so their fraud will be undeniable. The punishment fits the crime perfectly, because the crime defines the punishment. But it goes deeper than just getting caught. They're going to lose everything they tried to keep by lying. The money they stole, it won't save them because they already spent it on the lifestyle they couldn't afford. The reputation they tried to preserve, it's going to be shattered beyond repair. The community they tried to manipulate, they're going to turn on them with the same energy they once directed at you. The relationships they maintained through deception, all going to dissolve when the truth comes out. Every person they convinced to believe lies about you is going to feel used, manipulated, stupid for falling for it. And that's going to turn into anger directed at the liar, not sympathy. Every neighbor they recruited into their rumor mill is going to feel embarrassed that they spread false information, and that embarrassment is going to turn into resentment. Every friend they pulled into their web is going to realize they were just a prop in a performance, and that realization is going to turn into abandonment. When your name gets cleared, it's not just going to be restored, it's going to be elevated, because the contrast between who you actually are and who they tried to make you out to be is going to be so stark that people will pay attention in a new way. They're going to see your grace under pressure, your strength in silence, your dignity in the face of false accusations, and that's going to make you more respected than you were before any of this started. Your work, your creation, the authentic expression they tried to copy and claim, that's about to get recognition it didn't have before, because now people understand the difference. Now they see clearly what's original versus imitation. Now they appreciate what they might have taken for granted. The attempt to diminish you actually created a spotlight that makes you shine brighter. People who never knew about the rumors, who were never part of that community, who exist in completely different circles, are going to hear about what happened, not the lies, the truth, the full story of how someone tried to destroy you and failed spectacularly, how someone spread vicious rumors and got exposed, how you handled false accusations with such grace that you inspired someone to confess everything. And those people, they're going to be impressed, not just by your innocence, but by your character through the process. They're going to see someone who didn't let false accusations change who they are, someone who didn't become bitter or defensive, someone who trusted the process when most people would have panicked. That's magnetic. That's rare. That's the kind of integrity that attracts exactly the kind of opportunities and connections you've been meant to have. The creative work they tried to steal, it's about to reach audiences who will appreciate it properly. The authentic voice they tried to silence, it's about to find platforms that amplify it correctly. The unique expression they tried to copy, it's about to be celebrated for exactly what it is: original, powerful, irreplicable. Everything you create moving forward is going to carry an added layer of credibility, because people will know you survived an attack on your character and came through clean. When truth wins this decisively, when lies get exposed this completely, when justice manifests this clearly, it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone watching. Other people who've been falsely accused see hope. Other people who've been walking in integrity through difficulty see validation. Other people who've chosen silence over defense see proof that their strategy was right. You're not just clearing your name, you're setting a precedent, you're showing a way forward, you're demonstrating what it looks like to trust divine timing over human urgency. And that demonstration is going to impact people you'll never meet, people who hear your story third hand, people who don't know your name but know what happened, people who needed to see that choosing peace over panic actually works. But there's another layer to this vindication that goes deeper than reputation or opportunities. It's personal validation. Every time you felt uncertain about walking away, every time you wondered if maybe you should have stayed to defend yourself, every time you questioned whether your boundaries were too harsh, you're about to get your answer. You were right. Every instinct, every choice, every boundary, all of it was exactly what needed to happen for this outcome to manifest. That internal knowing you had, that gut feeling you followed, that intuition you trusted even when it didn't make logical sense, it's about to be validated in front of everyone who questioned you. Not that you need their validation, but it's coming anyway, and when it does, when people who doubted you start acknowledging they were wrong, when family or friends who thought you were overreacting see the truth, when anyone who suggested you should have handled it differently realizes you handled it perfectly, that validation is going to feel like vindication on a soul level. You're also going to notice something interesting about the people who reach out after your name gets cleared. Some will apologize genuinely, some will try to reconnect as if nothing happened. Some will want to explain why they believed the rumors, and you get to decide how to respond to all of that. You don't owe anyone immediate forgiveness. You don't owe anyone access just because they finally believe you. You don't owe anyone a relationship just because they came around to the truth. Your discernment has been sharpened through this experience. You now know what real loyalty looks like. You understand the difference between fair-weather friends and ride-or-die connections. You can spot manipulation faster. You can sense inauthentic energy more clearly. You can identify people who are with you for what you can give them versus people who are with you for who you are. Use that wisdom moving forward. You are not who they tried to make you out to be. You never were. You're not a thief. You're not a fraud. You're not someone who takes advantage of tragedy. You're the opposite of everything they accused you of. You're someone with such integrity that even when no one was watching, even when you could have retaliated, even when you had every reason to fight back, you chose the high road. You chose peace. You chose truth. Your authentic expression, the work you create, the energy you bring, that's not something anyone can steal or replicate or diminish. It's yours, it's unique, it's powerful, and it's exactly what made them so envious they had to try to destroy you, because they looked at what you have naturally and realized they could never manufacture it. They could copy the surface but never capture the essence, and that drove them insane. You're a chosen one. And what that actually means is that you operate under different rules than people who live in deception. You're covered by protection, they can't penetrate. You're guided by wisdom, they can't access. You're connected to truth, they can't comprehend. Every attack against you was destined to fail, not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. Aligned with something bigger than ego, deeper than fear, stronger than any human attempt to harm you. You learned that your reputation in the eyes of people who don't truly know you doesn't define your worth. You learned that defending yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you is a waste of precious energy. You learned that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. You learned that distance isn't always avoidance, it's often wisdom. You learned to trust your intuition even when you can't explain it logically. You learned that boundaries aren't mean, they're necessary. You learned that not everyone deserves access to you, your energy, or your explanation. You learned that peace is worth more than being right in the eyes of people who don't matter. You learned that divine timing is more reliable than human intervention. Most importantly, you learned that you're stronger than you thought, more protected than you realized, more aligned with truth than you gave yourself credit for. This situation that was meant to break you actually proved you're unbreakable. The attack that was designed to destroy your reputation actually demonstrated your character. The lies that were spread to diminish your light actually ended up making you shine brighter. The rumors are dying. The lies are exposed. The thief is revealed. The witness has spoken. Your name is cleared. And you're exactly where you were always meant to be, untouched, unbroken, unbothered, operating on a frequency so high that their attempts to drag you down only demonstrated how far above them you've always been. This is not where your story ends. This is where it truly begins. Everything you've been through prepared you for what's coming. Every lie told about you made the truth of who you are shine brighter. Every rumor spread made your authentic voice more valuable. Every attempt to destroy you actually made you stronger, wiser, more discerning, more protected. You just inspired liberation by being free. You just triggered confession by living in truth. You just activated justice by refusing to participate in chaos. That's your power. That's your frequency. That's your gift. You change things without trying. You inspire transformation without effort. You move mountains just by being immovable yourself. The witness spoke. The truth emerged. Justice unfolded. And you just kept being you. That was enough. That was always enough. That will always be enough. Stay in your power. Stay in your truth. Stay in your frequency. The universe just proved it has your back. Now watch what happens when you step fully into everything you were always meant for.